So given a packet of n cards with x cards face up, dealing out x number of cards from anywhere in the packet into one pile, and then flipping this pile of x cards yields two packets of cards, one consisting of x cards and the other consisting of n minus x cards, that both have the same number of face-up cards. Okay, so what is this saying? So as I mentioned, we can use any packet of cards. So here I'm just using our 15 cards from before, okay? So n is 15. So what we can do is, see, maybe we'll count out 7 or something. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That's our x number of cards, okay? Now what we're going to do with those is just flip them over, have them face up, okay? Now these can be mixed thoroughly. You can actually table wash these. The order of these cards is not at all important for this principle. They can be in any order whatsoever. They truly, truly can, okay? So you can have the spectator go ahead and mix these thoroughly, okay? And so just recall that we know something. We know we have 15 cards, of course. But more importantly, we know that we have 7 cards face up. Well, according to this principle, what will happen is if I draw any 7 cards from here as a separate pile, and then flip that pile, that new pile will have the same number of face-up cards as the remaining cards, okay? Now, on so many levels, that should be extremely surprising. For one thing, since we have 7 cards face up, 7 cannot even be evenly divided. It's an odd number, right? Okay, so the principle is we can deal from anywhere that we like. Okay, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Oh, we stopped there. Sorry. 7. So we have 7 cards in this pile. 7 cards here, 8 here. Now, if we were to just flip these, it is guaranteed that the number of face cards here will equal the number of face cards in the remaining portion of the packet. So right now it looks like we have 3 face-up cards, and indeed we have 3 face-up cards in that remaining part of the packet. Okay? And it doesn't matter how we mix those cards. It doesn't matter what we do to them as long as we're aware of how many cards are face up in our packet. In fact, let me just point out, there was nothing special about 15. If we had used the whole deck here, it's almost hard to believe, isn't it? But try it. If you had the whole deck and you turned 7 cards face up, any 7 cards face up, and then you just mix the deck as much as you like, and then you just randomly dealt out 7 cards into a pile and flip that pile, it will be the case that that flip pile will have the same number of face-up cards as the remaining portion of the deck, which is the majority of the cards. Okay, so it really is a most remarkable property. Now, the proof for it is not, quote, difficult. It is subtle, though. It is subtle. And, okay, I wasn't planning on going through the proof of this principle, but I had second thoughts. So at the very least, I think we'll do a quick once through the proof if we let the letter P represent the total number of cards in the packet, okay? So we had 15 just a minute ago. And then let U represent the total number of up-facing cards in the packet, okay? So what we just did there, we had 7 up-facing. But that's also going to be equal to the number of cards in your hand drawn from the packet. These are the ones that you're going to flip in just a minute. So U is representing or denoting both of those quantities because they are equal. Now, H is going to represent the number of up-facing cards in your hand before you flip your hand. So this packet of P cards breaks up into two portions. One is the U number of cards, right? It's also equal to the number of up-facing cards in the beginning packet. And then the remaining number of cards would have to be packet total, P, minus U. Okay, so these two add up to the packet size, so that makes sense. Okay, so look at what happens here. So the number of up-facing cards before you flip your hand is H. Okay, that's how we defined it right here. So nothing funny there. But once you flip your hand, these cards in your hand, what happens to the number of face-up cards? Well, you have U cards all together in your hand. H of them are face up. If you flip that packet, you're going to have U minus H cards flipped. Whereas for the remaining cards, the P minus U cards, that portion of the packet is left unchanged. So the equality of these two quantities in this final column proves the conclusion of this result. And then notice here, there's no P in here. There's no packet size in the conclusion. So this result is independent of the packet size. And that's what I was mentioning with using the entire deck. Okay, but one thing I did want to show you here, just how versatile this little principle really is. I've come up with well over 100 mathematical card effects that are based on this one principle. So here's just one simple example. Okay, so in this example, I plan to just use 10 cards altogether with half of them face up and half of them face down. So here I have 3, 4, 5 face down and 5 face up. Okay, and this can be randomly mixed, of course. I'm going to first demonstrate kind of the very, very simple version of all of this, and then I'll demonstrate the more advanced version. Okay, so let's first do the simple version, and then we'll do this more advanced version that I have written up here. Okay, so on the screen to the left, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to let 0 represent setting a card down without flipping it from its current orientation. 1 will represent setting the card down but flipping it first from its current orientation. Okay, so that's what the 0s and 1s represent. Deal out the 10 cards into 2 piles. Okay, so let's do that. Okay, so to be able to see what's going on, let me just get rid of this write-up for a minute. I'll bring it back. Okay, so let's go ahead and illustrate what's on the screen on the left there. Okay, so what it's telling us to do, kind of need 5 hands for this. So we're going to create 2 piles. So the left pile, what am I going to do? I'm going to do the following with the cards. I'm going to do a down, down, flip, down, down. That's pile 1. Pile 2 will be down, flip, 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 down. Okay? Now, later, it actually will be helpful to think of the 0s and 1s. It just seems to be an easier way for your mind to remember the pattern here. And notice the symmetry. The symmetry is incredibly important, as you'll see. So I have 2 0s, then a 1, and then 2 0s. So it doesn't matter which way you read that, read it down or up, it's the same thing here. Okay, that symmetry will prove very helpful. It'll simplify everything for us. Okay, so let's go ahead and do what pile 1 says to do there. So I'm going to do down, down, flip, down, down. Very good. Now pile 2, I'll move the mouse over there, is going to be down, flip, 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 down. Okay. Now, the goal is to do one more dealing of these cards so that the pile on the left has been brought back to its original state as far as the distribution of up-facing and down-facing cards. Whereas pile 2, the goal is to have each of those 5 cards flipped from their original orientation. Okay, before we did that dealing just a moment ago. Okay, so what does that mean exactly? Well, think about it. To undo this, you just perform it a second time. So we've already done down, down, flip, down, down. Now we want it back to the way it was. Well, if you just do down, down, and then flip again, we will have flipped the card that we flipped once already, right? And that will bring it back to original state, and then just a down, down. So let me go ahead and just quickly do that. So down, down, flip, down, down. So if you were to rewind the video, you would realize that these cards are back to where they were. So that's like leaving that portion alone. Now, the other pile, what we're going to do is we're going to, in fact, maybe I'll bring it over here and probably take advantage of what I've written up over here. So for the second deal for this one, now we've done this already to pile 2, right? The second pile. Well, we want ones everywhere in the end. And we don't want to backtrack, okay? So right now I have 0, 1, 1, 1, 0. Well, I want ones also where those zeros are. Well, the way to do it is I just have to flip the top one, leave the middle 3 alone because they've been flipped already, and then flip the last one, okay? And that would result in just a big column of 5 ones, right? And so that corresponds to having flipped all of those cards over from their original orientation. But that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to do flip, down, 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 flip. Okay? So the net effect there is that I have actually flipped over every card in this packet from its original orientation and returned all of these to their original orientation. Well, since there were 5 up-facing cards at the beginning, we can invoke the face-up principle. Because what we've done over here is it's like we dealt out 5 of the cards and then we flipped all of them from their original orientation while leaving the remaining 5 alone. So it will be the case now that these 2 piles are guaranteed to have the same number of face-up cards. Absolutely guaranteed. Okay? So that is the kind of simplified version of this application of the principle there. So let me show you the more complex version. And it's actually not that hard to learn, but you end up looking like a wizard when you perform it. It looks absolutely impossible what you're doing. Okay, so let's begin as we would with a spectator here. So we have them just draw out any 10 cards, have them flip 5 of them, and then have them mix these as much as they want. In fact, you can have them mix them without you watching. You could turn your back and then keep your eyes closed. You can keep your eyes closed during everything I'm going to show you, actually, and I normally do. I just close my eyes, and the algorithm, is guaranteed to work here. Okay, so they hand you the packet. What do I know? I have 10 cards. I also know that I have 5 up-facing cards, okay? To use the face-up principle, I have to somehow divide these 10 cards into 2 halves, really, right? We need 2 piles of 5, and then I need to essentially flip one of them from their current state, okay? And then I can reveal that those 2 piles now have the same number of up-facing cards. Okay, so what I do is I go through, let's bring back the other paper here. And so what I do is I string these together. Let me just show you here. So this is the top half, okay? So this is what I do to the top half. And then when I'm done with that, I come over here, and then I do this for the bottom half. I'm going to keep all the 10 cards in my hand. I'm not going to deal into piles. That was the simplified version to kind of see what's going on. So the cards will remain in, all 10 will remain in my hand the whole time until the reveal at the end, of course. Okay, so I'm going to do this, followed by this. Okay, now think about it. What was the top is now the bottom. And then when I do this kind of deal with the bottom half, these cards will be on the top now. Okay, so what I'll need to do then is after I've done this, I need to immediately come over here and finish the job here, right? Because I have flipped the middle three. I still need to flip the top and the bottom on these right here. So I'll do a flip, a down, 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 flip. So now those 5 cards have been changed from their original orientation. And then after I've done that, I need to come over here and do that. And this, of course, will undo the effect of that first deal. Okay, well, that's a lot to take in. So let me just go ahead. So I guess I just want to point out here that we'll start here. So this is, I have arrows going everywhere here. So we'll say start here. And of course, you'll end over here. You'll end doing this. So end here. And now you just follow the arrows, okay? And I'll go ahead and show you where we are. Okay, so to review, I have 10 cards. 5 of them are face up. Okay, and maybe I'll do it over here so you can still see things. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go, and I'm going to do it in hand, okay? So you kind of have to think about this. When I deal off like this and then deal off another one like this, that's just like dealing them to the table. It's reversing their order. Okay, so that's what I'm going to do. So I'm going to do kind of like a down, down, flip, down, down, come over here, down, flip, 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 down. I'm over here now. I need to finish the job on the top 5. What was the bottom 5 is now the top 5, right? So what I need to do is I need to flip this one. I need to do down, 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 flip. There's my pile. These are cards that have been flipped from their original orientation. And then I come over here, sorry. And then I come over here to end. I need to kind of clean up a little bit. I need to do a down, down, flip, down, down. Right? I need to fix that middle card because it got flipped. And now what that does is it brings these back to their original orientation, whereas these have all been flipped from their original orientation. Well, now we can once again invoke the face-up principle. It is guaranteed to be the case that the number of face-up cards in this little packet of 5 has to match the number of face-up cards in this little packet of 5. Okay? So that, it may look complicated, but it's actually not too bad. And because of the symmetry of these sequences, it really isn't too hard to remember these. And let me just explain how I came up with these, my logic, because I think that will help you remember. So for the first dealing, it would be silly to not flip any of them, right? I mean, that would just seem to be a waste. Right? You want to flip something. So what I've done here is I've flipped the minimum that I could to maintain symmetry. So I have down, down, flip, down, down. Now, if you think about it, the reason for the symmetry is because we're going to go like this way through those. And then we're going to go backwards through them, through those, right? So you want things symmetric, so it doesn't really matter which direction you're coming from when you're drawing these cards off, if that makes sense. Okay, so the symmetry is very helpful here. In fact, extremely helpful. Okay, so for the first deal, that's why I came up with, I thought, well, that's silly to not flip any of them. Well, let's just flip one. So that's the dealing for the top half. Down, down, flip, down, down. Now the dealing for the bottom half is just kind of the opposite, where I want symmetry here because we want it to be the same no matter what direction we come from. Well, what's the maximum number of flips I can fit in there and have it symmetric? But I don't want to flip all of them. See, it's the same thing here. I don't want to just deal them all down without flipping anything. And I don't want to flip all of these, right? Okay, so that partly because it would just give away potentially too much information and allow the spectator to discover the method. Right? So what I've done here is I've just knocked off one of the zeros. So for that second half of the packet of 10, it's going to be down, flip, 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 down. So really all you have to remember is this sequence, 0, 0, 1, 0, 0, and maybe even remember why we have it. We wanted to flip something, so we flipped the middle. And then over here for the bottom half, I don't want to flip everything, so I'm going to have to just, the most I can flip and not flip everything is what I've written right here, if you're wanting symmetry in the way that we want it. So essentially, the second 0 and the fourth 0 gets replaced by a 1, right? So by a flip. Okay, so if you can remember, this is your first sweep through the top 5. And then this is your first sweep through the bottom 5. Well, what was on the bottom is now on the top. So these are the cards that we need to work. These are the cards we'll work with because they're on top right now. So now you come over here and you finish the job here. So we want all of these to be 1s, if you want to think of it that way. We want all of these to be, flipped from their original orientation. So I need to do a flip, leave those middle alone. They're done. They're all ready. And then flip that last, the last one. And so now those cards have been flipped from their original orientation. And then the remaining cards, what we'll need to do is go ahead and just perform the same dealing of the top half on these cards. Okay, so the first and second dealings here are identical. The first and second dealings are essentially inversions or complements of each other. Can you see that? So where we have a 0, we have a 1. And where we have a 1, we have a 0. So these are just complements of each other. So that's a way to kind of remember it. So if you just practice maybe referring to this pattern here for, as a cheat sheet for just a few cycles through, you really can get to the point where you can do this with your eyes closed, with hardly even thinking about it. And like I said, it is just inexplicable to the spectator, because think about it. These cards were randomly mixed. The face-up cards and the face-down cards, that was decided by the spectator, okay? And then you're not even looking at the silly packet, or you don't need to, at least, as you're doing this. And let's go through it just one more time, okay? So here I want to make sure I just have 5, right? For our little system here, simple little system for 10 cards. So I have 3, 4, 5 face up. Okay, so let's do it just one more time here. So what I do is I go, well, we can do it in hand. Let's see, how should we do that? Oh, in fact, let's do it just a little differently. Maybe this might be a good intermediate way to help you. So let's go ahead and just deal them to the table, the first sweep through, and then we'll, of course, deal them into the 2 piles. So that might be a nice way to do it. I normally do the first sweep just right in my hand by doing what I just showed you a minute ago. But what you could do is you could just go down, down, flip, down, down. So I've just done those. Come over here. Down, flip, 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 down. Okay, so we've done this, we've done this. And now we need to just finish up these cards here. We want them flipped from their original orientation. So I'm focused on here. One, so flip, down, 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 flip for the 1, 0, 0, 1. And then for the second pile, I come over here and I've got to clean these up because the middle card has been flipped and I don't want it. So I do down, down, flip, down, down. And the fact that you can do that with your eyes closed, you know, with your eyes open, of course, you could accomplish the task of having the same number of face-up cards in each. I mean, that would be ridiculous, right? But you're doing it with your eyes closed, you know, and you can even have a blindfold on or something. Okay, so these are guaranteed to have the same number of cards. And in fact, you won't know, no one will know. Well, I mean, unless somebody's tracking the whole process. You had some omniscient person seeing exactly how the cards were handed to you and where the up-facing cards are, of course. But barring that, no one will know actually how many will be face up at the end, including you. You just know that you'll have an equal number of face-up cards in each. That's all you know by this principle, but it's still a considerable amount of information. And very surprising information. Okay, so that is an example of using this principle, and then I've extended it to larger. Looks like my formatting. This is a PDF of my Evernote file, so things went wacky. So these are packets of different sizes. Okay, so we have 2M cards here. So you can come up with different systems for, you know, just kind of keeping track of those zeros and ones. But boy, just this one with 10 cards, it really is worth mastering. It really is. It's not too difficult. And in some ways, it's sufficient. I probably went overboard as I extended this to larger and larger packet sizes. So I got to the point where I can still work with a packet of 20 cards with 10 of them face up. And I have a system for just very quickly with my eyes closed, dividing those up into 2 piles where they each have the same number of face up cards. Now, having the result of this by itself, well, okay, both piles have the same number of face up cards. I mean, on its own seems like a pretty, simple and maybe uninteresting thing to accomplish, right? And I want to just point out that you can apply this principle to very different situations. Here is a voting example where I supposedly am able to always persuade 2 groups of people to vote the same way, you know, like a yes and a no. And then there's, you know, you can use kind of a right-wrong narrative or good, bad. A fun one is a point system. And so you can guarantee that at the end, maybe these cards represent 2 teams. You can guarantee that the 2 teams finish with the same number of points at the very end of the game. And here's an application involving stoplights where you can guarantee that you'll hit the same number of red lights going to work versus coming home. Okay, so there's almost endless applications of this rather remarkable little principle here. Okay, well, that's enough about the face-up card principle.